Good afternoon and welcome everyone to a special afternoon for favorite poems from the Pasadena Rose Poets in honor of Black History Month. So we have a lot of people coming in right now, and we're delighted that you are with us today to celebrate at Black History. While we're waiting to get going, in order to make it as enjoyable for everyone, would you please mute yourself? We have live transcript so that you can set that up yourself and see everything that is being said in the written format. We're very fortunate that the Pasadena Rose Poets have allowed us to record it today so that it will be on YouTube Pasadena Library. You can share it with your friends and watch it later on as well. There's a chat, and if you put your questions in chat after the program and the poems are presented, you can ask chat questions, and I just know all the poets will be delighted to answer your questions. So today's program is sponsored by the Pasadena Public Library in honor of Black History Month. The library is honored to celebrate the achievements and contributions of Black Americans and their central role in our nation's history with virtual programs.
Louise, I need quiet.
Hello, can we, everybody please mute yourself? Then we can hear contributions of Black Americans and their central role in our nation's history with virtual programs, story hours, and activities for all ages and our community. We have prepared a Black History brochure, and you can pick this up at any of the Pasadena Public Library branches, as well as the Jackie Robinson Recreation Center. You can go online and see it at the Pasadena Library website as well. And it lists all of the programs in it. It's a chock full of a multitude of programs. You can also go to the Pasadena Public Library to our own off the shelf, and we have all of our Black History programs listed here. So we are delighted that the Pasadena Rose Poets are with us today. We are welcoming 5 Pasadena Rose Poets: Gerda Govine Duarte, Teresa Mitchuk, Hazel Clayton Harrison, Shahay Mankaran, and Tony Mosley. And we're honored that they're here with us today to celebrate Black History Month. I'm going to turn the program over to Gerda. That's going to start it and set the format for everyone. Welcome, Gerda, and welcome everyone else.
It's a pleasure to be back, because the last time we read in person was 2 years ago, February 22nd. Okay, just 1 second, something got in my, okay, yeah. So it's almost, this is like a reunion, even though we all stayed in touch with each other. But I want to welcome all of you, and we have continue to have an amazing journey as poets, and it's a real pleasure to be here. So each of you will read for about 7 minutes. And what we're going to be doing is reading the work of African-American poets, contemporary, and those who are no longer with us. And I'd like to start the program with Teresa Mitchuk, one of the Pasadena Rose Poets. Okay, take it away, Teresa.
Hi. Thank you, Gerda. I'm so honored to be a part of this Black History Month celebration. I grew up in Pasadena, and I'm honored to be Pasadena Rose Poets and Altadena Poet Laureate with Hazel Clayton Harrison for 2 years, from 2018 to 2020. I'm not sure what else he wanted us to say, but I'll be reading from, I don't know if you can see the book. It's Alice Walker, Her Blue Body, Everything We Know. I'm a high school English teacher, and this book was one of many books that was donated to my classroom, and it was on a shelf. And I happened to turn and notice it a few weeks ago. And I picked it up and I opened it, and it's been inspiring me ever since. I'm very grateful for Alice Walker's work. And this was the first time I've read her poetry. I'll start with this poem. Never offer your heart to someone who eats hearts. Never offer your heart to someone who eats hearts, who finds heart meat delicious, but not rare, who sucks the juices drop by drop, and bloody-chinned grins like a god. Never offer your heart to a heart gravy lover. Your stewed, over-seasoned heart consumed, he will sop up your grief with bread and send it shuttling from side to side in his mouth like bubble gum. If you find yourself in love with a person who eats hearts, these things you must do. Freeze your heart immediately. Let him, next time he examines your chest, find your heart cold, flinty, and unappetizing. Refrain from kissing, lest he, in revenge, dampen the spark in your soul. Now, sail away to Africa, where holy women await you on the shore, long having practiced the art of replacing hearts with God and song. Gift. He said, "Here is my soul." I did not want his soul, but I am a Southerner and very polite. I took it lightly as it was offered, but did not chain it down. I loved it and tended it. I would hand it back as good as new. He said, "How dare you want my soul? Give it back. How greedy you are." It is a trait I had not noticed before. I said, "But your soul never left you. It was only a heavy thought from your childhood passed to me for safekeeping." But he never believed me until the end. He called me possessive and held his soul so tightly it shrank to fit his hand. This next poem is called How Poems Are Made, a Discredited View. Letting go in order to hold on, I gradually understand how poems are made. There is a place the fear must go. There is a place the choice must go. There is a place the loss must go. The leftover love, the love that spills out of the too full cup and runs and hides its too full self in shame. I gradually comprehend how poems are made. To the upbeat flight of memories, the flagged beats of the running heart, I understand how poems are made. They are the tears that season the smile, the stiff neck laughter that crowds the throat, the leftover love. I know how poems are made. There is a place the lost must go. There is a place the gain must go, the leftover love. Torture. When they torture your mother, plant a tree. When they torture your father, plant a tree. When they torture your brother and your sister, plant a tree. When they assassinate your leaders and lovers, plant a tree. When they torture you, too bad to talk, plant a tree. When they begin to torture the trees and cut down the forests they have made, start another. Yes, These are Alice Walker poems.
Okay.
I dropped,
You have another one?
I dropped a few. I'm not sure how much
Just
time.
one more. Yeah, there's one more poem you can do.
One more poem?
Mhm.
Okay. Read. Read this poem here. Your soul shines. Your soul shines like the sides of a fish. My tears are salty. My grief is deep. Come live in me again. Each day I walk along the edges of the tall rocks. Thank you. Again, these poems are by Alice Walker in her book, Her Blue Body, Everything We Know.
All right, thank you so much, Teresa. I really appreciate that. Next up, we have Shahe Mankarian, and take it away, Shahe.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Gerda. Hello, Pasadena Public Library. Thank you for having us here. This wonderful event that celebrates African-American poetry and African-American culture. It was so interesting as I was doing my research today and getting ready for tonight. I realized how many of these poets were born in February. Langston Hughes, for example, was born on February 1st. Alice Walker, that we just heard, was born on February 9. Audre Lorde, which I will be reading some of her work, was born on February 18. So a lot of these writers, and the poem that I'm going to start reading is from Paul Laurence Dunbar, who was born on February 9, 1906. He died at age of 33, but my gosh, he left such a tremendous amount of work behind. He died of tuberculosis. The poem that I would like to start reading, the reading that I would like to do is called "We Wear the Mask," which is so appropriate for what we are going through right now. But there's definitely a very dark twist to the topic of wearing a mask. It's called "We Wear the Mask." We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet, and long the mile, but let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. The next poem I would like to read, I read some of these poems in the classroom today, and some of my 8th graders said they like this one. It's by Terence Hayes. It's called American Sonnet for the New Year. Things got terribly ugly, incredibly quickly. Things got ugly, embarrassingly quickly. Actually, things got ugly unbelievably quickly. Honestly, things got ugly seemingly infrequently. Initially, things got ugly ironically, usually. Awfully carefully, things got ugly unsuccessfully. Occasionally, things got ugly mostly painstakingly. Quietly, seemingly, things got ugly beautifully. Infrequently, things got ugly sadly, especially frequently, unfortunately, things got ugly. Increasingly, obviously, things got ugly suddenly, embarrassingly, forcefully. Things got really ugly. Regularly, truly, quickly, things got really incredibly ugly. Things will get less ugly, inevitably, hopefully. The next poem that I would like to read is another poet who was born in February. It's Audre Lorde. And the poem that I would like to read is Now by Audre Lorde. Women power is Black power, is human power, is always feeling my heartbeats as my eyes open, as my hands move, as my mouth speaks. I am. Are you ready? Another poem by Audre Lorde is The Black Unicorn. The black unicorn is greedy. The black unicorn is impatient. The black unicorn was mistaken for a shadow or symbol and taken through a cold country where mist painted mockeries of my fury. It is not on her lap where the horn rests, but deep in her moon pit growing. The black unicorn is restless. The black unicorn is unrelenting. The black unicorn is not free. That's Audre Lorde. I would like to read a few of my favorite Langston Hughes poems. The first one is called The Blues, very short poem, 2 stanzas, 8 lines. When the shoestrings break on both your shoes and you're in a hurry, that's the blues. When you go to buy a candy bar and you've lost the dime you had, slipped through a hole in your pocket somewhere, that's the blues too, and bad. The other Langston Hughes poem that I would like to read is, again, one of my students' favorites. It's called Letter. Dear Mama, time I pay rent and get my food and laundry, I don't have much left. But here is $5 for you to show you I still appreciate you. My girlfriend send her love and say she hopes to lay eyes on you sometime in life. Mama, it has been raining cats and dogs up here. Well, that is all, so I will close. Your son, baby, respectably as ever, Joe. Gerda, how much time do I have?
You can do another one.
Another one more poem?
Yes.
Okay. The next poem, again, I would like to close with my with a Langston Hughes poem. And my students, I think, overwhelmingly voted for this one. Mother to Son by Langston Hughes. Well, son, I'll tell you. Life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it and splinters and boards torn up and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time, I've been climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps, 'cause you find it's kinda hard. Don't you fall now, for I is still going, honey. I still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear
Okay,
you.
great. Thank you so much, Shahe. That was interesting about these poets having birthdays in February. How appropriate, to say the least, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much. And Shahe, you have a new book out. Could you just give us some information about that?
Yeah, I have a new book out. It's called The History of Forgetfulness. And it came out in the UK 3 months ago. It's called, again, History of Forgetfulness. And it's about me growing up as a preteen during the Civil War. So a lot of these poems deal with the Civil War from the perspective of a child.
Which war was that?
It was the Civil War, the Lebanese Civil War.
Okay. All right, thank you, Shahe.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, up next, we have Hazel Clayton Harrison. The floor is all yours, Hazel.
Thank you, Gerda. First of all, I'd like to say that I am just so excited to be here. It feels like a homecoming because the Pasadena Central Library has always felt like home. And we've had so many readings and events there. And as Gerda, as you were saying, 2 years ago this month, we were reading, that's when we were all together, and we read at the library, if I'm not mistaken. So it just has a very special part in my life, and of course, all of the Rose Poets. And I just want to say one other thing about the Pasadena Central Library. It was about maybe 8 or 10 years ago, the first time I ever saw Maya Angelou in person read was at the Pasadena Central Library. So there's a lot of history there, and it's just wonderful to be living in its shadows. I'm going to read something a little, as I was thinking about what I wanted to read tonight, I read Black history and Black poets just constantly. But I thought tonight I would celebrate some of the lesser known, more local Black poets. And I've had the honor of belonging to an organization called International Black Writers and Artists. They have a Los Angeles chapter, and they have other chapters throughout the country. And a book that, as a member of that organization that we wrote, was called, and this is, I know it's backwards on the screen, but it's River Crossings. And this came out in the early 90s. I think it was around 1992, Voices of the Diaspora. So I'm going to be reading a few poems from this, and the IBWA, International Black Writers and Artists, will celebrate its 48th anniversary this year, which we're very excited about. So I want to share a few poems from there. And I'll also be reading a couple poems, or at least one poem, from the Pasadena Rose Poets collection, which Gerda was the edited, and it has some beautiful works in there. And I want to introduce to you one of my favorite poets, that I just knew, and something about knowing, just like knowing all the Rose Poets. This is something about knowing not only the works of a poet, but the poet, so that you're familiar with their life. So I'm going to read a couple of poems by, his name is Ken Wibbecan, and there's a picture of him there. Ken died several years ago, and he wrote this book. It's called Poet Warrior. The first poem that I'm going to read is actually a poem that's in introduction to Ken, and it's the title of this poem is taken from the title of this book. And this is a poem that I wrote as a contemporary poet. Poet Warrior for Ken Wibbecan. I once knew a man wearing a kufi, a dashiki, a necklace of cowrie shells. He swept into the room. His poetry was like acupuncture, opening my chakras, making me feel emotions I never knew I had. His weapons weren't knives and guns, but words that pierced my heart. A man who reminded me of some lost African tribe I once belonged to, some crossroad at which we had once met. I once knew a man with lightning in his beard, eyes that could see beneath skin into the heart. A man who taught me we are all part of a never-ending chain of command, somewhere between ants and God. Despite our pain and agony, we can travel roads with dignity, compassion, humility. A poet warrior he was. I once knew a man. This is one of Ken Wibbecan's poems, and he was a journalist, and he wrote for many years for the Long Beach Press Telegram. This one's called A Mantra for Peace in honor of John Coltrane. And if you've ever listened to jazz or appreciated jazz, you know who John Coltrane is. Nature awakens me early during the warm season. Birds gather outside my bedroom window, singing the morning song. I open the tray, pop in a CD, and John Coltrane's Golden Sax joins the chorus. A love supreme, a love supreme. I stretch my arms to the sky. What should be a happy occasion is sullied by the screams of my sisters and brothers across the sea, being torn to bits in the bloody embrace of their neighbors. A love supreme, a love supreme. I stand on my front porch. On a clear day, Camel's Hump is visible in the eastern sky. In younger times, my dog Pepe and I walked its rocky trails, our footsteps keeping time with the music of nature. A love supreme, a love supreme. But even then there was a war in a faraway land that summoned us to demonstrations, sit-ins, and years of protests before it went away. We looked to the heavens for guidance and learned that it is easier to tear each other apart than it is to embrace. A love supreme, a love supreme. I have shed many tears for my planet, but there are reasons why I live here in the North Country. A breeze blows, inviting trees to dance. The air smells clean and fresh. Animals cavort with nature. Peace reigns in the wild. Only humans have trouble remembering where they are. A love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme. The next poem by Ken is called Earthbound. I'm tired of writing about Black. I'd rather write about the outdoors, far from the smog and scurry of civilization, where on a moonless night, the stars float down like a giant bowl full had been inverted over my head. On sunny winter mornings, I can strap on cross-country skis and make new tracks through fresh snow in the silent woods. I want to dream about kings, queens, castles, and fanciful creatures in colorful worlds, where adventure is every day, where spaceships ply the skies, and wondrous beings with two heads, tentacles, and several pairs of arms are my best friends. I want to write poems that make people laugh, smile, remember, and sometimes cry, or stories about my old dog Pepe, and fictional tales for everyone's children to enjoy. But it is not yet time to fly. I am earthbound. I am Black. Okay, so then I am going to go from there, and I'm going to read from a few poems from River Crossings, Voices of the Diaspora. This one is by Salim Abdul Khalik, and it's called Baby Talk. If we treated every child like poetry, the history of ourselves would be read and not forgotten. If we saw the poetry in our children, we would understand that they are true gifts of light. If we created children like the poet creates poetry, it would be a true act of love. If we could only read the poetry in our children's eyes, we would not go foolishly to parenthood. We would not admonish them vainly, nor abuse their delicate beginnings. But we would speak poems to them softly and watch them grow from the essence of our words. Gerda, do I have a time? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was muted, sorry. You got one more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fannie Lou Hamer, A Rock in a Weary Land, and this is by Anna Geneva Rutledge. Fannie Lou, at the age of 6, began her life in Rule, picking cotton in this Delta town. It was her learning school. She sharecropped and she kept the time, 18 long, hard years. Her path was strewn with barriers and often bitter tears. Yet she was a rock in a weary land. And early on, we note, they fired her from the old plantation for trying to cast a vote. A fearful life she had to live and threatened time again. 16 bullets riddled the house where she hid with a kindly friend. Ms. Hammer was often brutalized in the minions of segregation. She tried to use the restroom at the old Trailway bus station. For this, she was brutally beaten and forcibly dragged away to the jailhouse in Winona. She was crippled to her dying day. Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel. We appreciate it. All right, next up, we have Tony Mosley. And Tony, just unmute yourself so you can join us. And I'm enjoying this reunion. I'm really enjoying this. So Tony, not unmute yourself? Okay, I'm not sure.
There we go.
Okay, there you are. Well, Tony, welcome. I know you had quite a journey trying to get here and be with us, but I really appreciate that. And so I'm going to have Tony to start reading. So Tony Mosley, one of the Pasadena Rose Poets, and part of our poetry family, to say the least. So Tony, you have about 7 minutes, give or take. And when you
Okay.
get close to the end, I'll just let you know. But I can hardly wait to hear what you're going to read. It's
I'm
on.
reading The Audacity of Hope, the prologue. It had been almost 10 years since he first ran for political office. He was 35, 4 years out of law school, recently married, and generally impatient with life. This was Obama. He was encouraged by a number of friends to run for a seat in the Illinois legislature. They felt that his work as a civil rights lawyer and contacts from his days as a community organizer would make him a viable candidate. After discussing it with wife Michelle, he entered the race and proceeded to do what every first-time candidate does. He spoke to two guys on a corner, just jiving, and he went up and did his spiel. He spoke to everyone who would listen and attended block club meetings, church socials, and sat with customers in beauty parlors and barbershops. He discovered that wherever he went, he'd get some variation of the same two questions. Man, where'd you get that funny name? Or they'd ask him, why do you want to go into something so dirty and so nasty like politics? He understood their skepticism, but he realized that these were and always had been another tradition to politics. A tradition that started from the country's founding to the glory of the civil rights movement. A tradition based on the simple idea that we have a stake in one another, and that what binds us together is greater than what drives us apart. And that if enough people believe in the truth of that proposition and act on it, then we might not solve every problem, but we can get something meaningful done. Now this is my voice. 1955, Emmett Till was killed and mutilated for allegedly speaking to a white woman. 1968, Martin Luther King was murdered on his Tennessee motel deck, waiting for friends to have dinner. This was 5 years after his I Have a Dream speech, where he spoke of his dream of an America void of segregation and racism. 2012, Trayvon Martin shot and killed in Sanford, Florida. 2020, Ahmaud Arbery, out for a jog, was shot and killed. 2020, George Floyd moaned that he couldn't breathe with a cop's knee on his throat and died in Minneapolis. In January 2021, Amanda Gorman popped up. She was the youngest poet to recite poetry for Joe Biden's inauguration, where she said, when day comes, we ask ourselves, can we find light in this never-ending shade? We have braved the belly of the beast. We have learned that quiet does not always mean peace, and notions of what just is isn't always just is. And yet the dawn was ours before we knew it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed the nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. I'm done.
Others? Yeah, I can come back to you later if you want.
Will you come back to me, because I'm totally disorganized here, so I need to find my other two poems.
Okay, no problem. I'll just come back to you. Okay.
Thank you, sweetheart.
All right then. So I'm going to share with you some poems from contemporary poets. One of the things that I just need to say, since I've been writing poetry since 2010, and I've met so many wonderful poets, and in terms of the Rose Poets and other poets. And I'm going to read a poem by Nikki Giovanni. And Nikki Giovanni is someone I met years ago when I used to do a radio show on KPCC. And when I wrote for the Journal, And I interviewed her, and we became friends. So we correspond with each other, and whenever she's in town, I find out and I'm right there. So this is a poem by Nikki Giovanni, and it's called Black History Month. If Black History Month is not viable, then wind does not carry the seeds and drop them on furrowed ground. Rain does not dampen the land and encourage the seeds to root. Sun does not warm the earth and kiss the seedlings and tell them plain, you're as good as anybody else. You've got a place here too. Nikki Giovanni. Terence Hayes. I met Terence Hayes through at a luncheon, a fundraiser from Red Hen Press, Kate Gale. And I met him and we talked, and every now and then we kind of send notes to each other. And he promised that if he ever came to California, he's going to have me and my husband Luis take him to Tijuana. It hasn't happened yet, but it might. Hold on. I've got a dog in the background that doesn't know that I'm on Zoom. Okay. Wind in a Box by Terence Hayes, after Lorca. I want to always sleep beneath a bright red blanket of leaves. I want to never wear a coat of ice. I want to learn without blinking and walk without blinking. I want to outlive the turtle and the turtle's father, the stone. I want a mouth full of permissions and a pink glistening bud. If the wildflower and anthill can return after sleeping each season, I want to walk out of this house where nothing but wind. I want to greet you. I want to wait for the bus with you, weighing less than a chill. I want to fight off the bolts of gray lightning, the alcoves and winding paths of your hair. I want to fight off the damp nudgings of snow. I want to fight off the wind. I want to be the wind, and I want to fight off the wind with its sagging banner of isolation, its swinging screen doors, its gilded boxes, and neatly folded pamphlets of noise. I want to fight off the dull, straight lines of 2x4s and endings, your disapprovals, your doubts and regulations, your carbon copies. If the locust can abandon its suit. I want a brand new name. I want the pepper's fury and the salt's tenderness. I want the virtue of the evening rain, but not its gossip. I want the moon's intuition, but not its questions. I want the malice of nothing on earth. I want to enter every room in a strange electrified city and find you there. I want your lips around the bell of flesh at the bottom of my ear. I want to be the mirror, but not the nightstand. I do not want to be the light switch. I do not want to be the yellow photograph or book of poems. When I leave this body, woman, I want to be pure flame. I want to be your song. Next, I have a piece from Rita Dove. The first book. Open it. Go ahead. It won't bite. Well, maybe a little. More a nip than anything else. A tingle is pleasurable, really. You see, it keeps on opening. You may fall in. Sure, it's hard to get started. Remember, learning to use knife and fork. Dig in, you'll never reach bottom. It's not like it's the end of the world, just the world as you think you know it. And the next is from Camille Dungy. What to eat and what to drink and what to leave for poison. Only now in spring can the place be named tulip, poplar, daffodil, crabapple, dogwood, budding pink green, white green, yellow on the knowing. All winter I was lost. Fall, I found myself here with no texture, my fingers know. Then worse, the white longing that downed us deep 3 months. No flower heat, that was winter, but now in spring, the buds flock our trees. But now in spring, the buds flock our trees. 10 million exquisite birds, tiny and loud, flaring their petaled wings, bellowing from ashen branches, vibrant keys. The chords of spring's triumph, fisted heart, dogwood, grail, poplar, wine spray, crabapple. The song is drink, is color. Come now, taste. I'm going to stop now. And Tony, are you ready? Can I throw the ball back to you? Is Tony there? Unmute. Can't hear you.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay,
Okay.
Tony.
I want to read something called Music, something that I wrote for Spectrum 22. It's called Music. There was always music, loud voices, broken glass, name calling. Growing up in our house, there was always music, confusion, falling in and falling out of love, my parents. Growing up in our house, there was always music and confusion. Until one day the music stopped. Life, love, anger, all gone, now that I was grown, standing in the silence of their house. Can you come back to me again?
Okay. No
I'm just so
problem.
discombobulated.
That's okay. I'll do a round robin. Anyone else like to read something that they have not had a chance to read? Well, just think about it. I'm going to read one. Okay, Hazel, why don't you go ahead? And yeah, Hazel, you go ahead and I'll read after you. Unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay.
This one is by, again, it's from the anthology River Crossings, Voices of the Diaspora. It's called Expressions of Black Love and Black Food. I'm trying to mix it up a little bit.
Okay.
Man say, girl, when I wake up in the morning, you're the syrup to my flapjacks, eggs to my grits, links to my cream of wheat, honey to my biscuits, jelly to my toast, cream to my coffee, ice to my milk, and the sugar to my grapefruit. Woman says, boy, when I get up in the morning, you are the cornmeal to my catfish, fat to my chitlins, hog maw to my cabbage, onions to my collard greens, black-eyed peas to my rice, butter to my cornbread, lemon to my iced tea, and the peaches to my cobbler. They both say, now ain't we in love?
real special. Okay, I'm ready, Gerda.
Okay, go ahead, Tony.
I've decided to read Amanda Gorman's The Hill We Climb. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just is not always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that is not broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but this does not mean we're striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so that we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we date it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. If this is truth, in this faith we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So I'm going to jump in with another poem, and then we're going to do a little talking after I'm finished with this. This is a piece by Jericho Brown, Crossing. The water is one thing, and one thing for miles. The water is one thing, making this bridge built over the water, another. Walk it early, walk it back when the day goes dim. Everyone rising just to find a way toward rest again. We work, start on one side of the day, like a planet's only sun, our eyes straight until the flame sinks. The flame sinks. Thank God I'm different. I figured and counted. I'm not crossing to cross back. I'm set on something vast. It reaches long as the sea. I'm more than a conqueror, bigger than bravery. I don't march. I'm the one who leaps. So, thank you. I don't know if you realize this or not, but this June we'll be celebrating 7 years together.
Really?
7 years. And I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to celebrate in many different ways, because I think all of you have been so generous with your time, with your work. And what I'd like to do, since we have some time left, I'd like for you to talk about your latest publication or the one you're working on, because You're always ready. You always know how to get your words onto the paper. So anyone can jump in. Tony, since I have you, you just spoke. Tell us a little bit about the memoir that you're writing.
I have reached the end. Finally reached the end. I now need to just reread it to make sure before I submit it to a publisher or to anyone who's going to help me that it needs to be as good as I can make it. So I am happy to say that I have finally reached this conclusion. And I also want to say, I did not realize that I could write. I'm still out, my audience is still out on that. But I have, as a result of being a member of the Pasadena Rose Poets, I have had 17 poems printed in 7 anthologies. And I want to thank Gerda Govine for your help and your direction and all the encouragement you gave me. So I go to you, Miss Gerda. Thank you.
What's interesting with Tony, I've known Tony for years, and we met and we weren't writing, and then we met at a conference, and she started talking to me, and I said to her, "You're a poet." She said, "What are you talking about?" Anyway, ta-da! Finish your memoir. Great, Tony. Okay, what about you, Hazel? What are you working on?
Well, I've been dusting off old poems and sort of working on them and rewriting, but I've got a couple of projects, larger projects that are going. And the first one is I spent much of 2020 going through old documents, letters, photograph albums, and I'm pulling it, and also on Ancestry websites, because I'm pulling together a history genealogy of my family roots. And it's something that I've wanted to do for years and I never found the time to do, but my children are adults now. And I'm just afraid there's so much of the information when you're trying to find your roots. And I think we talk about Black history. I watch a lot of the Henry Gates show, The Roots, finding our roots. And you see how important it is to know where you came from and who your ancestors are. And so when my family was part of the Great Migration of African Americans who left the South and moved, we headed north to Ohio back in the early 50s. So my family, most of my parents' family were left in the South. And so I didn't grow up around them. And I always felt kind of disconnected. And so I spent a lot of time asking my parents to tell me stories and, who were my grandparents and my great-grand and so forth. So now I've gathered all that information and I put it in a booklet, and I just finished a good draft of it that I'm going to send several members of my family. And then I'll publish that just for a very small audience, the family audience. So I'm very excited about that. And then the other one is I'm working on a book about the pandemic, about my experiences surviving the pandemic. And I also, I did a lot of gardening, or I've been doing a lot of gardening. So the working title is Gardening During the Pandemic. I want to interweave gardening and survival and the pandemic, and I'll see how it turns out. But I'm at the very beginnings of that.
You've also put on Facebook and other places all of the breads and the cakes and the stuff. I just stop. I have to hold myself because I gain 5 pounds each time I look at what you've made.
Baking, yes.
Right. Okay. Shai had to leave because he had to take his daughter to an event. So I knew he would be leaving. Teresa, what would you like to share with us in terms of your new work?
So recently
Oops. Unmute, can't hear you. You there? Teresa? Okay, we may have a bad connection here. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what just happened. Anyway, okay, so I'll talk a little bit about what I've been doing. Like I finished book 5 and that's on the way. But one of the things with the pandemic, I just found that my head would feel like it's huge because there's so many thoughts in my head. And once I would sit down, it would just empty out on the page, because I think there's a certain kind of quiet or peace that seems to show up because you're not running around and doing a lot of things that you were doing before. And so for me, I've been writing like a mad woman, and I'm glad that I have. So I'm working on book 6, and I'm also working on a memoir, and that kind of surprised me, but whatever. And so that's what I've been doing. And I think that we have learned how to make lemonade out of lemons. And we keep writing and we keep doing the things that we do. And I'm not sure if Teresa's still there. She may be gone. But if there's anything.
No, I'm back.
Okay.
My connection actually got disconnected. I was talking and then suddenly it was like your connection is not working. So I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure if you heard me start talking, but I was saying I recently did a collaborative poetry book with an American veteran of the Vietnam War, Doug Rawlings. He's also the founder of Veterans, one of the founding members of Veterans for Peace. And so we communicated, and we have this book of poems that are in conversation with each other. And the focus is on the American war in Vietnam, and also the consequences of the war. So the family and the aftermath, the post-traumatic stress disorders that both our families experience. So that's something very recent. It's called Bamboo Bridge, and it just came out in the winter of 2021, early January this year. And I'm working on a chapter that will be released towards the end of this year by Hummingbird Press. So a small collection of poetry. I'm not sure if I'm out again, if my connection is working or not.
We can hear you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
Okay, we've lost her. She's lost us. We'll keep trying.
I'm not sure if my connection is working. Did you hear me talk?
Yes,
Or?
yes, we did.
Oh.
The book, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Now, did you publish another book recently?
My most recent full-length collection, sorry, let me turn on the light, is Invisible Light by, released by Many Voices Press. And that was released in 2018. So, and then the collaborative poetry book, Bamboo Bridge. And I have a collection of poetry in a chapbook that will be published by Hummingbird Press later this year.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to, give us a chance to kind of just talk to each other. And I think as poets, we keep writing because that's who we are. And so if there's anything else you'd like to read, anything else you'd like to share, that would be great, because we haven't had this opportunity in 2 years. And we want to just make the most of it where possible. So anyone else want to read another poem or make some comments or talk about what it was like for you in this new world that we were sort of dashed into, and still finding a way to stay relatively sane. So you'd like to add anything? Tony?
I would like for us to get together or either have a Zoom meeting where you could talk about how to find a publisher once you've written something, rather than having it sit on your desk collecting dust. You want to send it someplace. How do we determine who to send it to?
Well, one suggestion I would make is talk to the poets you know who have published, like any of us.
Right.
And we can give you some suggestions and so forth, because you have some publishers that specialize in certain things. Some publishers specialize in poetry, others might only do memoirs. So utilize the resources you have around you,
Okay.
and consider us to be your first wave. So just, talk to each of us and see what we come up with. But I think it's important to utilize the contacts you have. So this way, when you move forward, you've got some grounding in terms of the reality of what's coming next.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
so I didn't know you had finished. So Rose Poets, okay, we're going to respond to you, Tony, okay?
Oh boy.
Tim, that manuscript cannot be collecting dust. That's not
No,
allowed.
it can't.
Hazel, what about you?
She needs to unmute.
Yeah. What I would say about the pandemic, and it's been 2 years now, is that for me, it's been a roller coaster, emotionally. First of all, the shock of it. And then there's just been so much happening socially and politically and so forth. So I've been doing a lot of journaling. It has triggered a lot of emotions in me that in the moment, I would just have to write things down. And I have missed my writers' workshops and my groups, even though I have attended many online Zooms and so forth. But still, there's something about having that face-to-face connection and seeing all of you. So that's been something that I've really missed. But I have also learned that I am truly, although I've taken that test that shows I'm truly introverted, which is one of the reasons why I write, because I can go inside. So the pandemic has given me an opportunity to really do a lot of soul searching and digging deep within my psyche, my subconscious, and seeing what comes out of that. And also to do a lot of reading, a lot of wonderful books. I'm thankful for the writing community. For example, Thelma Reyna, she wrote she put together the anthology When the Virus Came Calling. So when we were in the midst of the first part of the pandemic, we all had an opportunity she just called up several people or notified them and say, I want you to write about the pandemic. So that gave us an outlet for our creativity. So we're still in it, but I'm finding the need for balance as a writer now, to just balance my personal life, my time when I'm quarantined or in isolation, but still the creativity, the writing is really what keeps me going.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that, we're really stepping on sort of unfound earth, if you will, because no one could guess what's going to happen next. And I think that the writing is an anchor for us. It's respite for us. And we're able to express what we're thinking and feeling and seeing. And sometimes we don't know what we're going to write, how that goes. You might write about A, and then all of a sudden you're writing about B, and you didn't know B was there. But I think that as poets, we have an opportunity to support others and to allow them to find their own way of dealing, whether it's writing or singing or dancing or whatever, so that there's always space for them to shift to, and the whole issue of writing is interesting. I was with a group of high school students last week, And I hadn't been on a high school campus since. And this is a high school where they come to school, but everybody has a mask on. And they also can also do it online. If you miss a day, then you can get the information online. And this is what I found. What was interesting, everybody was wearing a mask. And usually it's been my experience with teenagers, I have to say to them, just keep it down, keep it down. In all of these classes, I had to keep saying, could you speak a little bit louder? Which was interesting. I've never had that experience before. And also too, I knew, and this was a class to talk about what they were thinking and feeling about the pandemic. And I knew that whatever they wanted to say was going to be something more general. They weren't going to sort of open up because you can't open up in those situations. And so I got them to write some sentences just as a start, and it could be a seed for a poem or whatever. But it was like, I felt that I was in a room full of young people who are bright and sharp and all of that, but I could almost feel the weight of their experiences without trying to go too deep. And so I had to do a lot of thinking about, I can push, but I can't push too far. I wanted to make sure that I didn't make them feel uncomfortable. And I've never had to think that way before, And so it was a lot of nuanced stuff. But the class was great. I saw them outside afterwards and they spoke to me and so forth. So there's a lot that happened that's not huge and major, but there's the little tiny things, that can kind of build up. And so it was quite an experience for me. But it's something I would do again because they're trying to find their way too. They're trying to find their way. And I think that the more people can talk about it or write about it, it can help them sort of lighten that load, if you will. And I don't know if any of you have been with any high school students or just with any groups. And there's a group that I meet with once a month, and this is just neighbors. And one night we met, and I swear, everybody was a stand-up comedian. I mean, everybody, we laughed so much. It felt so good to laugh. And so what do you do to laugh? What do you do to lighten the load? And writing could be part of it, but what else is there? You know what I'm saying? How do you keep walking? And help others to keep walking. And you mentioned Thelma's book about the COVID-19, and I'm blessed to be in that book also. And it's like, how do you keep the flame alive when the darkness keeps showing up, And because as writers, we're lucky, we're really blessed. And I just want to let all of you know that without all of you, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Without all of you, I would not have been able to do certain things. Like one time, it was I think it was Hazel, you, Sean, and I were in Chinatown. Remember that? And a couple of years later, Shai said to me, he said, I'm very, very shy, but you got me to do things I never would have done on my own. So we have these experiences, and I think that giving back is so important, and all of you do that in your own way. And so I just want to say thank you publicly. And all of you have made a difference in my life, because I had no idea this was going to happen. You have a grant, you do some readings and then you go home. And that didn't happen. I'm glad it didn't happen. So I just want to have any comments you may have before we wind down. We still have a little time left. If you want to read anything else or make any other comments, that's fine, because I'm talking to you like this because we haven't been able to talk to you that much with shifting of the landscape, if you will. So
Miss Gert, can I ask a question?
Oh, yes, Miss Lena, you can ask a question.
Can we in the audience recommend a reading from someone?
Sure.
Oh, so can we recommend that Hazel do the reading that she wrote a poem for the Dakar Senegal, and I was wondering if she would be willing to read that.
I'd be happy to. Actually, that was kind of on my list, but I know we were sharing
Thank you, Lena. Great.
poems from other artists. I just happen to have it here. And thank you, Lena, for asking that. This was one of the highlights of my writing career, was to pen a poem for the delegates from our newest, Pasadena's newest sister city, Dakar Plateau, Senegal. And this was actually, it was 2020, so it was 2 years ago as well. And I had the pleasure, the opportunity to read it in front of them, and I'm hoping that they enjoyed it. We even presented a copy to the mayor.
Great.
It's entitled With Open Hearts and Hands. Welcome, welcome, brothers and sisters of Dakar Plateau, Senegal. Welcome to Pasadena, crown of the valley. We welcome you with baskets of flowers, lilies, lilacs, poppies, and roses. We welcome you with baskets of fruit, strawberries, grapes, peaches, and plums. We welcome you with art, song, and dance. We welcome you with business, science, technology. We welcome you with open hearts and hands. We are proud of our cultural diversity. Some of us are descendants of native Californians. Most of us are descendants of people from distant lands, but we are all Americans, rooted in America's shores and sands. We are entrepreneurs, engineers, and educators, doctors, lawyers, artists, and administrators. Today, we welcome you, our newest sister city. In every language, sister has the same meaning. It means sharing natural and cultural resources. It means honoring and respecting one another. It means lending a helping hand. It means growing in peace, love, and understanding. With open arms, we welcome you to our city. We welcome you into our hearts, our homes. May our sisterhood flower and be fruitful. And from all that I'm hearing, the sisterhood is flowering.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Hazel. And I think too, words can make a difference, and I think as poets, especially when times are a bit difficult, our words can bring some solace. Our words can bring some hope. And I think that that's a responsibility that comes with our territory. And I think as we, go out into this world, there's so many things that are dark, so many things that aren't working, so many lives that have been lost. But you've got to be able to at least have some light entering the space. It could be a door ajar. It could be some candles you light. And I find that I'm lighting more candles than I ever did in my life, because sometimes I just want to light a candle. Maybe somebody passed away, I don't know about it. Maybe something else happened, I don't know. But it's sort of like burning that candle for humanity, whatever that means. And I think because the ways we give back to our words, our actions, and I think that we are all blessed because we have a gift, we have a talent, and we keep sharing it with everyone and with each other. So for me, being with the Rose Poets speaks volumes, because we have done a lot of things that others have not done, not because it was a big master plan. There was no big master plan. it just sort of evolved. And I think that all of you continue to just keep being who you are, you know, and making those adjustments and making those changes and supporting each other. And so what I'd like you to just share with us, what are some of the things that you haven't gotten to yet that's still out there and you're just waiting for it to land? What are some of the things when you look at your particular lives? And
I would
Tony's
like
going to get a book published. That I know. Okay.
I would like to do a children's book. So after I finished my memoir, I decided I wanted to do a children's book. My two main characters are a Black boy and a Hispanic boy, and they're each teaching the other different things about their backgrounds. Like the Spanish boy teaches the Black boy how to say mother in Spanish, how to say school in Spanish. So he's teaching him the language of Spanish. Even when he's not asking for it, he's getting it. So that's one of the things that I'm working on, is a children's book.
Okay. All right. Teresa, you
And
there?
I want to thank Hazel for giving me her time when I first started writing. She encouraged me so much. Thank you, Hazel. Thank you
Oh,
very
you're
much.
so welcome. It was my pleasure. And anything I can do to help, I'd be happy
Okay, thank
to.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
What about you, Teresa?
I'm really grateful to be part of this family here, and I think getting back into spending time with the community of poets and that are part of my life and family, and also writing more again, and not really thinking so much about publishing, but just getting back into the joy of writing and the importance of writing and poetry. And I know it's really helped get me through these past couple of years that have been really rough on a lot of us. But I think, like Hazel said, it having that time of solitude also reminded me how much I needed that silence, especially I had COVID a few weeks ago. So I was isolated in quarantine. Nobody wanted to be around me. But at the same time, I didn't need to worry about anything else. And I think I needed that that silence and that space. So, and as you know, I recently just moved from my childhood home. So that's been a big transition. So my hope is just, planting the seeds that I want to see grow and bloom. And also, it means a lot to me knowing that my community, like you and Hazel and Tony, Shahe, all Kate, all the people in our Rose Poet Net group are we're here, we're still a part of each other lives, and like you said, supporting each other and helping each other. And when you were saying what helps us to get through all this, I think really having people who care about you, and like we've known each other for so long now. Like, I can't believe our group has been around for so long. And yeah, I think just planting seeds and tending to all these things that are important in my life.
Hazel?
Yeah, I'll just add very briefly. I'm looking forward to getting back in public spaces, more in-person readings, and I'm hoping that by spring or summer we'll be back to place where we can feel safe about going out and gather. I was able to gather with my family for the holiday season, and just a very small family gathering for the first time in 2 years. So that in itself was just an amazing occurrence. And I think one of the things that the pandemic has done is it's made us grateful for things that we've taken for granted in the past, just, coming together with our friends and our family. I had the wonderful experience of being asked to do a reading for the Altadena Chamber of Commerce over the Christmas holidays. And it was my first public reading in 2 years, actually. And it was everybody, it was outdoors, and everybody was just happy to be out. And it was just amazing. And it just reminded me of how wonderful it is to have that live exchange with an audience and get feedback. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And of course, continuing to write and to seeing all of you, hopefully this year sometime, but if not, for the next reading.
Yeah, for me, it's been a time of experimenting. I had no plans to write a memoir, but about 6 months ago, I found my high school yearbook, still in a box from when we first moved here. And I started going through it. And I started writing like little short stories. And then I meet with a group once a week. And we all have to have work ready Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. And sometimes it's midnight Wednesday. I don't have anything, but I do by the time that happens. But for me, since I have to write each week, and I do things I never thought I would be doing, like for instance, like I talked about doing a memoir. And a memoir is a long haul, right, Tony?
Yep.
Right.
Very long haul.
So I just write a little story where I put it in an envelope, a folder, and I'll get back to that. And it was funny, I was talking with a friend of mine who's working for the Globe Theater. She said, well, do your memoir and maybe we could do a one-woman show. Now I'm like, what? Anyway, so I think because of what we're going through, we're not as, we're a little more fluid. You know what I'm saying? In terms of new things showing up and not saying, I'm not sure, but sort of being propelled in a way into new things like Tony Eater children's book. And so, we can create what comes from our gut, what comes from our ancestors, what comes from our thoughts, the people we're connected with. And so that we will always have this flow of words, always have a way of seeing with the third eye, the third ear, and to hear the birds singing and to see the daisy growing out of the crack in the sidewalk, because without that, it's like the lights are always off, and we can turn on those lights anytime we want to. And sometimes you may not want to, but the light is saying, I'm here. What are you going to do? And so it really, it keeps us hopeful, even when so many things have gone wrong, because being able to write is a way that you anchor yourself. It's a way that you're connected to a lot of other people. And so, we will celebrate our 7 years sometime in June. I don't know, I'll talk to you more about it because I have no idea. And because I think it's important that we honor that, because I would not be doing what I'm doing now without the Rose Poets. I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't probably know how to do this without the Rose Poets. And so I want to thank all of you for being here. Lena, thanks for hanging in, and I'll be talking with you later, if not tonight, tomorrow. And so this has been a blast, and we'll do something again. Okay? So then thank you so much. And I'll be talking with all of you at some point in time, and I really appreciate it. Now, Christine, I'm done for now. I'm mute.
I'm sorry. what a wonderful, wonderful program just to listen to the beautiful poems that all of you shared, the poems from your favorite poet, your own poems, what you're working on, what you're looking forward to doing. And of course, you know, we all had you at the Pasadena Public Library in person. And so, of course, we're looking forward to be able to invite you back to not at Central Pasadena for a while, because, you know, we're closed for the seismic retrofit, but at one of our branches or at another location to be able to host in-person events again. So this was a very, very special afternoon. And I want to thank Gerda for lining it up, Teresa, Hazel, Shay, Tony, for all participating. It was absolutely wonderful for you to be a part of it. Thank you very, very much. I want to remind you too that we do have some other Black history programs that are coming on. On Wednesday, February the 16th, we have a Century of Black Pioneers in Pasadena and Los Angeles. That will be very interesting. And then on Tuesday, February the 22nd, we're having a presentation from the African American Firefighters Museum in Los Angeles. And it's the only firefighters museum in the United States. So that will be quite fascinating. And then Jasmine Elizabeth Smith, the poet, is presenting her book, South Flight. And it is about the 1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma riot and Red Summer. And that's on Thursday, February the 24th. And then on Saturday, February the 26th, we're having a conversation about the book Passing, Neela Larson's book. So you might want to join us for some of those events. And you'll think, well, how can I find out about them? If you can go to Pasadena Library, to one of the recreation centers, you can pick up one of the flyers. You can also go online and pick up the flyer. And then all of Pasadena Public Library's programs are in our monthly off the shelf that's on our webpage. So I hope you'll participate in some of the other programs in honor of all the accomplishments of our community for Black History Month. And I thank you for all of your accomplishments and your participation, and look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Yes, Christine, thank you
Thank
for sticking with us all this time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very
you.
much for joining us tonight. Good
Okay.
night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Great event. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for coming. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm gonna get off now.